You step into the open-air theater of Caesarea Maritima. The morning sun pierces through the delicate haze of dust, striking silver threads that shimmer across a throne elevated above the cobbled plaza. The air smells faintly of salt, stone, and incense drifting from distant temples. From afar, you hear the faint murmur of courtiers and ambassadors, voices full of reverence, awe, and fear. Before you sits a man draped in robes woven entirely of silver, reflecting the sun in a blinding glow. His crown glints like molten gold, his eyes sharp, proud, unyielding. This is Herod Agrippa I, king of Judea, Samaria, and the lands Rome entrusted to him. His shadow stretches across the marble like a warning etched in light and stone. For decades, he has walked the razor's edge between obedience to Rome and loyalty to his people. Today, that balance will shatter. The crowd erupts. Delegates from Tyre and Sidon raise their hands, voices trembling as they chant, "Not a man, but a god!" Each cry strikes the king like music and dagger intertwined. Agrippa does not flinch. He does not speak. He allows it. And in that moment, he commits an act far greater than arrogance. He accepts adoration reserved for God alone. Modern medicine today reminds us of the fragility of the human body. A sudden infection, untreated sepsis, or an intestinal infestation could consume a living being from within in days. Yet in that sunlit theater, centuries ago, the line between divine punishment and biological horror would blur, leaving a king to experience a slow, agonizing death as a warning echoing across time. Even kings are flesh beneath the gold. You feel the weight of mortality pressing down, the reminder that power cannot shield us from the inevitable decay of the body or the justice of history. You walk through the marble corridors of Rome, into the gilded chambers where a boy named Agrippa plays among scrolls and statues. He is the grandson of Herod the Great, infamous for both monumental architecture and the massacre of innocents. From birth, Agrippa inherits not only a crown of prestige but also the shadow of tyranny. Every smile hides calculation, every laugh is tempered by the lessons whispered in corridors where fear is currency. Raised in the grandeur of Rome, Agrippa learns the politics of survival. The streets teem with intrigue. Debt collectors, rival nobles, and courtiers skilled in manipulation test him daily. He befriends the future emperors Caligula and Claudius, forming bonds that will later define the trajectory of his life. Yet the lessons of loyalty are fragile, and betrayal is omnipresent. Even in the play of childhood, Agrippa sees the shadows of ambition and danger, a foreshadowing of the throne he will one day inherit. By the time he returns to Judea, Agrippa is both a product of Roman luxury and Jewish political cunning. His youth was not innocent. It was a crucible, forging patience, calculation, and an understanding of power as both armor and weapon. He learned to navigate courts where a single word could condemn or elevate, where appearances were as lethal as swords. He is now a man standing on the edge of destiny, aware of the fragility of life and the volatile allegiance of those around him. Yet despite all lessons, one trait will betray him, the desire to be revered not merely as king, but as divine. Ambition is inherited, but arrogance is chosen. Even a child raised in safety and luxury can be sculpted by fear and expectation, shaping rulers who walk the line between wisdom and hubris. The year is 41 C. Caligula has fallen, Claudius reigns. Agrippa, now a man, is rewarded for loyalty with lands and titles stretching across Judea and Samaria. The palace hums with celebration, but beneath the clinking of goblets lies tension. Agrippa is king by Roman favor, not by divine or popular right. His authority is borrowed, conditional, a fragile veneer over centuries of Jewish suspicion toward Herodian rulers. He strides through his new capital, Jerusalem, greeted by priests, soldiers, and the curious populace. Temple bells toll, incense swirls, and the sun strikes the white limestone, casting shadows of devotion and dread. Agrippa performs the rituals expected of him, offerings at the temple, public prayers, and displays of piety. Yet in Roman fashion, he also patronizes games, feasts, and spectacles that delight Gentile audiences but stir discomfort among the devout. His rule is a dance of dualities, a tightrope over a chasm of potential rebellion. Even now, whispers echo. He is a Herodian. Can he be trusted? Agrippa knows that perception is as powerful as law, and he cultivates grandeur to command both fear and respect. Power, he understands, is as much theater as it is rule. Authority built on borrowed power is always precarious. Leadership is never just about crown or decree, it is a performance, and the audience always judges. April 1st, 44 C. Caesarea Maritima glows under the morning sun. Agrippa has summoned delegates from Tyre and Sidon, intent on reconciliation after disputes over grain shipments. The open-air theater is filled with courtiers, merchants, and soldiers. Every eye watches, every whisper counts. Agrippa, adorned in robes woven from silver, rises on his elevated throne. Light bounces off the threads, blinding and majestic. The crowd gasps. Acclamations rise. Not a man, but a god! Each voice is a hammer, striking the fragile armor of humility Agrippa thought he wore. He remains still, regal, unyielding, and in that stillness, he sins in the eyes of the devout. He accepts the worship. The silver robe reflects not just the sun, but the danger of hubris. Pride and vanity, so long restrained, now surge. And then it happens, pain. A sudden, unbearable ache pierces his abdomen. He staggers, the throne swaying under his weight. Attendants rush forward, carrying him to the palace, but the agony has already begun. For 5 days, he will endure a death both cruel and fascinating, a slow devouring of flesh by intestinal parasites or possibly gangrenous infection. History will debate the exact medical cause, but the horror is undisputed. Divine favor is fleeting. Mortal flesh is fragile. Even the mighty, adorned in gold and silver, cannot escape the fragility of their own body. Inside the palace, the air is thick with incense, perfume, and the coppery scent of fear. Agrippa lies on a couch, pale, sweating, writhing in agony. His attendants and physicians attempt remedies, but the disease, or divine retribution, progresses relentlessly. The sounds of moans and whispered prayers echo through marble corridors. Imagine the sensation, a living body being consumed from within, the stomach twisting, burning, and tearing. Skin may swell and bubble. Larval movements feel like tiny, relentless hands scraping flesh. For Agrippa, consciousness remains intact. Each moment is excruciating awareness of decay. His wealth, his crown, his silver robes, meaningless against the reality of mortality. Outside, news spreads quickly. The citizens whisper, "A punishment from God? Or a curse of fate?" In Judea, the lines between theological interpretation and medical observation blur. Josephus and the Acts of the Apostles record the horror, emphasizing either divine judgment or historical fact. Modern readers might call it severe intestinal myiasis, septicemia, or gangrene. Then as now, the human body remains vulnerable, and pain can be a messenger. The flesh betrays no king. Even rulers who command armies and gold cannot master the limits of mortality. Agrippa's death leaves a vacuum. His young son is too inexperienced to rule, and Rome reassumes direct control over Judea. Tensions rise between local populations and Roman governors, planting seeds for rebellion decades later. Political power is fragile, dependent not only on military might but on timing, alliances, and fortune. For the early Christians, the death of the king who executed James and imprisoned Peter becomes a symbol of divine protection and justice. Theology and politics converge, one king's arrogance, one sudden death, and the narrative of a growing religion intertwine. Agrippa becomes a warning, a legend, a cautionary tale recorded by historians and theologians alike. The silver robes, the public admiration, the immense wealth, all vanish in a handful of days. Even the memory of power is tinged with decay. Empires and kingdoms may rise and fall, but the body, flesh and bone, cannot escape the same end that has claimed every human life across centuries. A kingdom may survive politics, but not pride. History preserves lessons not in buildings or thrones, but in the consequences of unchecked ambition. History repeats itself in subtle ways. CEOs, politicians, and leaders today wield immense influence yet remain vulnerable to the same human failings Agrippa exhibited: pride, vanity, and disregard for limits. Medical science reminds us that neglect, infection, or simple biological vulnerability can claim anyone, famous or ordinary. Public figures are scrutinized, praised, and vilified, much like Agrippa. Social media amplifies this. Adoration and condemnation exist side by side. Even today, societies witness the fragility of fame, power, and the body, echoing lessons from Roman Judea. For ordinary lives, lessons persist. Overconfidence, disregard for health, or unchecked ambition can have fatal consequences. Agrippa's story, though centuries old, resonates as a caution: we are all human first, and mortality respects no title. Flesh is timeless. Vanity is eternal. We are reminded that humility and awareness of human limits protect far more than gold, armor, or title ever could. Standing over the ruins of Caesarea, the wind carries the faint smell of salt and decay. Agrippa's silver robes have long since tarnished, his crown vanished, and yet his story endures. Mortality is the great equalizer, pride the most perilous weapon. For rulers, for citizens, for all humans, his story is both warning and mirror. Wealth cannot preserve life, glory cannot protect flesh, adoration cannot prevent decay. Pain, suffering, and death are the truths beneath the veneer of power. Even if divine intervention is questioned, the human lesson is clear: arrogance carries consequences. Life is fragile. Legacy is fragile. And sometimes, history records not victory, but humiliation, suffering, and the stark reality of human vulnerability. All kings bleed. All flesh decays. The past is a teacher, its lessons etched in flesh, in memory, and in the echoes of history. From Rome to Jerusalem, from Caesarea to our modern world, Agrippa's story resonates. Tyrants, opportunists, and those intoxicated by adoration continue to meet their limits. Whether through illness, misjudgment, or poetic justice, mortality humbles all. His death shaped history, influenced religion, and warns every generation of pride's peril. Even today, the shadow of his silver robes stretches into modern corridors of power, reminding us that hubris and vanity are punished, sometimes gently, sometimes with horror. History speaks: admiration unchecked leads to downfall, arrogance blinds judgment, flesh will betray ambition. Agrippa's suffering, whether literal or metaphorical, reverberates across time, a mirror of human vulnerability and divine, or natural, justice. Pride blinds, flesh obeys. The past is never silent. Its whispers are lessons in mortality, humility, and the limits of human power.